Hi, everyone. Welcome so much to tonight, our final online PELS for our incoming presidents and secretaries-elect. We thank all of you who've been here with us consistently over the last 6 weeks, and we're so excited to have you join us in Trinidad in just a couple days, about 2 weeks from now. Before we go into our Zoom protocols, special welcome to all of our past district governors who are here. Our district governor-elect, Soraya, who is leading the charge with PELS, our district committee chairs, especially our guest speaker tonight, PDG, Dr. Stephen Ramroop. To all of you, our presidents-elect and secretaries-elect, our incoming board members, and Rotarians. We thank you for your interest in being here with us tonight. In just a moment, you will see a screen that highlights some of the protocols for today's session. And some of those things include, please turn on your screens so that we can get to know each other. They're also, let's see if it will pop up. Okay, here it comes. You should be seeing it now. Also, if you are listening, whether you're listening to us in French or in English, please select the language by looking for the interpretation. It's normally a globe. You will either see it at the bottom of your Zoom screen or press the 3 dots at the bottom and it will take you to interpretation. Please select either English or French. Also, let's make sure that we have our names clearly listed, and if you can also add what club you're from and your incoming position. If you have any questions as our guest speaker presents tonight, please put them in the chat and put them in caps so that we can see those questions easily. And at the end of our session, we will have an evaluation, so please look out for those QR codes so that you can give us feedback that we'll gladly pass on to the learning team for next year's PELS. As we start our session, we want to hear again from our very special DGE. DG Soraya has been a member of the Rotary Club in St. Lucia since March 2010, and she served as president in 2018-19. She's held so many positions on the club's board, and remains an active member of the Rotary Club of St. Lucia. At the district level, DGE served as district secretary and then as district Interact chair. As Interact chair, she was in that post for 3 terms, and she was integral in revitalizing and growing the district 70/30 Interact community. And you can tell she's very passionate about empowering youth through service and leadership and shaping the future leaders of the Caribbean. She's a Paul Harris Fellow and a member of both the District 70/30 Polio Plus and Paul Harris Societies. Soraya is a seasoned corporate banking professional with over 30 years in the industry, and she's now general manager and assistant vice president at an alternate investment firm. Soraya believes that Rotary offers an incredible opportunity for us to serve, transform, and make a difference in our world. Let's welcome DGE Soraya.
Thank you. Thank you so much, incoming district learning facilitator Tanya. Thank you for your introduction. And good evening, everyone. And thank you for your attendance here this evening. I would like to start off as well by acknowledging our past district governors on the call, in particular past district governor Stephen, who is our presenter here this evening, our assistant governors, other district leaders, and all of our incoming club presidents, secretaries, and club officers. Welcome everyone to this final session in our PELS virtual series. Tonight, we will discuss service projects. And as we've already indicated, past district governor Stephen Ramroop, our expert on this subject, will lead this presentation. As we all know, service is at the heart of Rotary, and as the incoming club leadership, your role is pivotal in steering your clubs towards projects that not only resonate with the club's values, but also create lasting impact within your respective communities. So the question for you is, how can you, as the incoming club leadership, ensure that projects introduced are effective, impactful, and sustainable, so that while your clubs may already be engaged in various service activities, this session, which will provide substantive guidance on projects, effectively provides the opportunity for you to revisit, reassess, refresh, rescale to see if any tweaking is required at all to further enhance, such that all of your service activities are as impactful or as successful as they can be. With that said, I hand over to our district learning facilitator-elect Tanya, who will formally introduce PDG Stephen and get this session going. Thank you so much.
Thank you for that introduction. I keep on forgetting to introduce myself. My apologies, everyone. As we prepare for service in our upcoming years, this presentation is going to be particularly important because it is, as Soraya said, the heart of our service. Dr. Stephen Ramrup is an orthopedic and trauma surgeon with over 33 years of experience, and he's also a dedicated Rotarian for more than 45 years. A graduate of the Jordan Hill Presbyterian School in Trinidad, he earned a national scholarship to study medicine at the University of the West Indies in 1980. He furthered his studies in surgery and orthopedic surgery in Scotland and holds an MBA in healthcare management. Dr. Ramrup has served as the head of the emergency and trauma at San Fernando General Hospital and also medical chief of staff at that hospital. He was appointed CEO of the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Management and contributed to disaster management locally and internationally. He's played key roles in events like FIFA's Under-17 World Cup and the ICC World Cup, and has worked with the United Nations on disaster risk reduction. As a long-term Rotary leader, PDG Stephen has served as president, assistant governor, and district governor, organizing numerous humanitarian efforts across the Caribbean. He's also a lecturer and consultant in healthcare and disaster management. Let's welcome our District Community Service Chair, PDG Stephen.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me?
We can.
Right, great. So I don't have to shout. It's a pleasure, and I'm very privileged to be requested to do this again. I note that there are some persons who are going to have to be admitted in the room while I speak, because we have about 70 something or 80 persons right now. So this evening, without any further ado, I would just like to acknowledge all the PDGs on the forum, as well as the AGs, all presidents-elect, secretaries-elect who will be joining us and are on the forum, and to say that as our DG mentioned, and Tanya did also reiterate, the heart throb of any club, what makes the club a club, as we all know, are the members of the club, right? And the members of the club, when they come together and they engage, one of the key elements of a successful club and a sustainable club is having projects that are highly impactful, makes a difference in the communities that they serve, can be reproducible by other clubs or even other organizations, and create the quality engagement with their communities at all levels and on all sectors in the community. Let's make that simple. The relevance of having good service projects is understanding that the projects are the heartthrob of your club. If you don't have any service projects, it literally means that you have no effective service that you can offer to your fellow human beings, as well as other creatures in your environment. When you look at the ecology and what you're doing with the environment, so it's not just human beings, but your entire community. And a community can be defined as every single entity that resides or actually participates in that community that you serve. As you look at what is happening in the geopolitics right now around the globe, with tariffs being implemented on many countries, the Trump administration, even in the Caribbean, what is happening in the Caribbean? It is going to be increasingly difficult for clubs within the space, within the next 3 to 4 years, within the next year to 3 years, to sustainably maintain some of the projects. And Rotary actually allows us to have our projects posted, and I'll explain to you how this can be done. And you can actually go on to this My Rotary, and you can actually, as you know, they have removed Showcase from the whole story since August last year. So it makes it easy for not just Rotarians, but any community member, any entity, any sector to go on to that website and even post a project or look at projects and how it can actually impact them. I'll show you a little slide. I'm sure you all know about it, but I'll just remind those of you all who know about it. So the relevance of having service projects is to promote effective projects. The club members, as I said, where does service projects reside in the club? And again, different clubs have different protocols and processes, but basically you would have a club service or a service committee, and that committee, as you can well imagine, has to organize the administration of projects, whether it be in the international service, community service, vocational service, using any one of the 7 causes that we have in Rotary, that actually we use to guide us as we develop our projects. So one of the things that we have to understand is that if you have effective projects, the club leaders, the district leaders, right, must ensure that the committees in your clubs, and of course the district committees when it comes to service, you have to be very careful as to what is happening with your projects, because we do a lot of projects in our clubs, even in our businesses. You know, we have projects, and some of them fail because we don't do a proper needs assessment. And if the club conducts a needs assessment, I'll quickly go through it, and you develop a plan, carry out the plan, and then you evaluate the success, it actually allows your project to be more strong, and it actually you're able to adapt to the changing needs of your community. And that is very important, as I mentioned, in the in the global space that we are currently living in. Partnering with other organizations, this is something that is very important when it comes to engaging sectors of the community. There are many funding opportunities in the Caribbean, right? Even with global funding and global economics being so, poor right now. And these funds have been available and are available through certain programs. So, for example, via your government, via the European Union, via CDIMA, which we have partnered with in terms of our district. When Sonia is here, when Sonia was the district governor, we had some partnerships with CDIMA. There are a number of projects we would have to remove US aid from it right now, but we do have other United Nations programs, right, in which we have specific programs for children, for women, and these projects and funding is available. Climate change and any climate change related project, there are funds available, and it's just, you don't have to, have barbecues and fundraisers in the club. You just have to have an administration in the club that understands your community and is able to conduct an assessment, not just of the community, but of the key organizations and entities that provide funding and can provide funding. So that is the relevance of what we are going to do. So I'm going to go on to the slides now, and I'm going to quickly share. Right. Everybody sees this one. Yeah. Good. So, and getting started. Again, we talked about expertise, and we all in this forum, I am positive that all our presidents-elect and secretaries-elect who have been elected by their clubs to represent their clubs and their communities. You have quite a lot of collective expertise as well as local expertise yourself and in your club. I mean, in our club, San Fernando South, we have 2 district governors. We have had persons who served as assistant governors. We have in this forum right here, in some of communities, a wide collective experience that can be shared, and it's easier shared now. As Lyle said, PDG Lyle, that he's in an E-club. This whole question of AI is pretty interesting. I mean, if I were to pose a question, I will ask a question and I will see if you all can send your answers on the chat or by, I don't know how we could do this, probably raising your hands. How many of you all have actually experienced AI involvement in your life, in your daily life? The answer, yes or no. And we have, I don't know how much persons on the chat, but if you were to do that, and let me know, I want to see a percentage of persons who actually have experienced AI. We are in the fourth industrial age in this world. And I just want to know if of all the persons who are here, how many of you all have actually experienced AI influence in your lives? Conduct a community assessment. Now, let us look at that. Just quickly, that resource is, let's see if I can save that one. Okay. Right. Right. Now, let's see. This, many of you all might be familiar with this. I'm sure you all are seeing it. All right. This is an extremely important booklet, right? Which you can get on my Rotary just by typing it, right? And one of the things that you can do as clubs when you go back and you start getting your first club assemblies, I think you should have a club assembly when it comes to your projects, because as I said, service above self is the key to the whole thing. It's the heartthrob of your club. It's what's going to make your presidency and your secretarial term, all right, actually fantastic. We're going to make Rotary great again. We're going to make this district great again. All right. But to do that, you have to actually download this booklet and actually take it out like school children, get to your club, start putting them in little groups. All right. And just going through this. And many of these things you have done in projects before. You're not reinventing the wheel. Every single club, every single president here, president-elect and secretary-elect, every single AG, every single DG, right, have done projects before in their club. And you have, whether you knew it or not, you have conducted a community assessment. And we just want to streamline a few things that you have to know about the current space, the new generations. They don't listen to some of our old people again. I'm 63, I'm a baby boomer. So when we come to them and they look at us, they say, oh my God, this guy doesn't even know about AI. He doesn't know. But I know Lyle will tell them otherwise, because, he is very accurate with his phones and his laptops and his social media platforms. And we have to remind them, well, hey, we are pretty good at what we're doing, but, I recognize that you guys have a different, Generation Zs and all of these guys, So your leaders, our leaders here today, must understand that you have to remain open-minded. Not because I used to go to a club and get up, and when I entered the club, I shook everyone's hands and then I sat down, and you consider that as a norm. I'm not saying that it's not something you shouldn't do when you enter your clubs, but it's something that some of the younger persons, when I went to some of the Rotary meetings, they're not doing, you see. And I had this conversation in my club recently where they're saying, well, no, we have to tell the Rotaracts that when they go to a meeting, they must get up and shake everyone's hands. Now, the reason why I'm saying this is not because there's a yes and a no and a right answer to this. It is because you have to remain open-minded. And this open-mindedness is what is very important as leaders. You have to be very flexible. At the same time, you have to retain the class of Rotary. The hierarchical structures must be maintained. but you have to be a little more careful in how you're doing it. Many of you all who have been in training sessions before, and I'm sure you all have been for your businesses, for your training. And you hear that teams are very important, and there are 4 types of persons, introverted, extroverted. Talk about Myers-Briggs, personality testing, and we went through all of those. And the thing about it is that there are certain people who you choose for certain positions. You have to be very careful that they actually are capable of performing. That's a very hard thing in Rotary when everyone volunteers to become a Rotarian, and it's not in a business where you're actually paying them to do what they're supposed to do. But it takes some facilitation. It takes a little bit of love, and it takes a little bit of, engagement. Engagement is a very powerful word. Facilitation is even better, where you can actually try to get them to do what you want without actually telling them to do what you want. That's a very difficult task, and a lot of people have not been able to master that task. So facilitation is a very important thing when you're trying to conduct any assessment in any community, especially when there's a crisis. For example, if there are flooding in your area and you want to do a project to alleviate or mitigate flooding by going to the authorities, for example, to say, well, let us have some structural mitigation programs, such as building dikes and barriers and dikes and clearing drains. You have to be very careful that there's a humanitarian emergency component to that. So once you give them the water and the hampers and you make them secure, then you can have a chat as to what you want to do in the future. So again, these are some of the things that most of us would have had experience. But interpreter, you let me know if I'm going too fast, okay? Because I will probably be doing that. You have to look at all your groups equitably. You have to make sure that although you are within that community, whoever is leading your team must actually look at yourself as an outsider to that community just for a brief moment, and try not to tell them, look, I will going to give you 3 water tanks, all right, within a month, right? I'm going to make sure and get that. I'll go to the MP and tell him to put funding and we'll get you water. You have to be careful with those sort of statements, because it's not as easy sometimes, right, to achieve those. Don't give them any sort of false hope until you go back to your club, go through the process of preparing your service project, making sure you go through the process of preparation and planning, looking at the risks, ensuring those risks, etc., before you get out. And we'll get to that quickly just now because we're moving on. Empowerment. Empowerment, again, my dear leaders, is a very, very strong word. Empower it's something that it does take skill. And speaking with people, not at people, is something that you have to understand, especially when you're engaging communities, especially vulnerable communities. You have to make sure that they're part of the discussion. And sometimes we recommend that, although as Rotarians, we all come from different skills and competency backgrounds, we may not have that ability to understand facilitation and talking with people rather than at them. So it's sometimes very good if you spend a little extra money in your projects and have a consultant or someone who can go with you to some of these communities when you're doing the needs assessment, so that when you actually get to them, you are able to deal with this issue. Nothing turns off a community more than when you come down with a Mercedes-Benz, you drive up with your, fancy tie with a very curt and fancy, the Queen's English, and you get into a community, and although you're not doing it, although you're not deliberately doing it, right, it comes off as you're speaking at them and not with them. So you have to be very careful. And again, as I said, you can actually, the service project director, which is myself, I think that this year we would have to have some sessions, right, Soraya and Tanya, where we can actually take this booklet virtually in this forum and try to go through step by step, because I think it's the single most important tool that Rotarian leaders, right, would have to use, right, when they're actually going into our newer communities with respect to what I'm talking about, our changing geopolitical space, the current stresses that we have, not just climate change, but environment and financial impacts. All right, the way that countries are coming back, what we call nationalism. There are a lot of problems in Europe and even United States, Canada, where they are moving out immigrants and whatever. So there are quite a lot of persons who are coming back into our Caribbean countries from some of these countries, who have been living in some of these countries. So again, we have to be a little more careful in how we're engaging our communities, right? So I'm going to come back to this slide. Okay. Finding resources. Right. Let's see if I can put this up. You all are seeing this slide, right? So these are easy. Set your project goals, work with partners. We just talked about that. And this is another thing about partners. As I said, they are partners. There's government and non-governmental. There are other agencies, again, that with access to funding. There are certain communities that have service organizations that actually assist with flooding and other. We need to just bring them together on the table. You know, let everybody bring their snacks. You don't have to cook for them, right? Yes, Lisa, I see your hand up. No? Okay. Create a project, plan, and budget. Now, we have always had problems. I mean, in my club and some other clubs, when people start talking about budgets, we have to be very careful about budgets. Some people may not be financially minded and they always have a problem with budgets. You know, there's a lot of quarrel about, oh, you said 10,000 and you are spending 12,000. Why it is that you don't have, why it is that you didn't stick to your 10,000. What, you know, the thing about it, we have to be very careful about the word. And I think that for the persons in the club who have a little more expertise in accounting and economics, right, would be able to explain what a budget means to quite a lot of the persons in the club. All right. Okay. So I'm seeing a slide coming up, open all rooms. Can we close that? I'm not seeing my slide so well. Tanya? Right. Okay. Publicize your project plans. Now, participate in project fairs. This is something that is coming a little more within our, well, not with our district. At last year's conference in Grenada, I know Leslie had project fairs. I'm not sure if we have, no, I don't think we have any at this conference, but project fairs can be organized, right, in which persons share their projects within the district, and other persons who are in the other districts. Some of the governors would have friends and other governors who might be able to look at those and look at certain funding issues. Look for funding outside of Rotary and secure funding through Rotary, of course, by grants and other means. Implementing your project, communicate and seek feedback, raise awareness, ask questions, and of course, sharing your results, promoting your project, and submitting reports. And this is where I just want to come to this slide here. All right, I think everyone is seeing this. So there's a new project center, right? A new service project center. Those of you all who knew about Rotary Showcase would know that as of November 2024, if you go on the website, for example, right? I'm not going to go through these slides, but it's just that you can now access the Service Project Center, and it allows members and participants to share, connect, serve, and grow. And it allows you to share your projects, right? And it allows you to look at what is happening in the global space. All right. If you look at any member can add a service project to the SPC. There have been 120,000 projects posted, you know, as of November, right? If you go on my Rotary Cup Central, you see all of these. You go to Service Project Center. For example, when you open your My Rotary, you'll see Participate and you'll see Service Project Center. If you click on that, right, it will give you a lot of opportunities to look at projects. Go to Knowledge and Resource, click on Service Project Center, and you're going to see things like these. All right. And if you scroll down, you'll actually be able to type in your actual project. All right. And you'll be seeing a lot of other projects, for example, add a new project, view projects. All right. So go to the SPC. All right. And you will be able to see what's happening. Okay. So let us get back to our slides quickly. Here we are. Great. Okay. So pick true and false. Now, I know it's going to be hard for everybody to do this on this session right now, but let us pick true and false quickly. Let us see. True. Proposing any project that comes to mind. Let us say your role as a leader, a club leader, a president-elect, secretary-elect who chooses your service team, right? And you're going to tell them, look, hey guys, the PDG has given us a very important pathway to develop projects. We have to do all of these things that he's saying. All right. And then maybe you could ask them as a little test, after all you have said just now, do you propose any project that comes to mind? All those who say yes, put up your hands. Well, obviously that's false, right? Because you can't propose any project that comes to mind. It's not your mind. It's actually based on a community assessment. It's what the community needs, not what you need. That's very important. So you sit in your club one day and you say, oh my gosh, I see there's a lot of problems with flooding in the community. Let's go and do a flooding project. So you go to the community and say, we would like to do a flooding project. That's not happening. It's not going to happen that way. You're going to have to go to the community and see exactly what they need, right? Sometimes all they might need is a little help in raising the electricity panels, right? Or switches from the ground to over 3 or 4 feet, right? And they want that in 15 of the houses that have been affected by flooding. So your project is really getting an electrician to go to the homes and raise the electrical plugs a little higher, right? Rather than, digging drains and spending thousands of dollars. And that is important. You go and you find out what is happening. Planning, implementing, and evaluating projects. We mentioned that is a very key role of your team that you're going to be setting up as club leaders when you go back into your clubs. Leading fundraising projects. Well, again, I told you, sometimes you can get funds that are there, but also we have a lot of fun when we have fundraising projects such as golf and barbecues and tea and fashion shows. We like those things. It's something that makes us feel Rotary-like. Quite a lot of the members of your club would like opportunities like those, and that's what makes a lot of people wouldn't reach the district conference. I mean, some people don't even know that there's a district conference, right? So you can't get everyone to understand the bigger aspects and experiences of Rotary. Don't try to force it, because just having fundraisers and barbecues and raising funds to buy a wheelchair is pretty fine. It is actually a good project, and it actually brings fellowship. And don't put those away because you want to have high impact, sustainable projects that will actually be long term. Don't mistake the two. All are necessary. It's just that what we are saying is that having a sustainable, high impact program, it gives more benefit to your communities, much more benefit, and it has long-term repercussions. It actually can save lives in a longer basis than if you are raising funds to buy a wheelchair for someone who is affected by a diabetic amputation. You are helping that person have a reasonable life. But if you go back and you do a project to prevent more persons from having amputations, then that is a high impact project. And that is the type of projects we want to see that you do in Rotary. And that's the type of projects, if you have a private company, you would want to do, because it brings greater financial outputs. So in Rotary, we don't look at financial outputs, we look at quality outputs, where you make an impact in your community. I hope you understand that. So you need to mitigate risks. Again, we live in a very legal environment. There are thousands of attorneys graduating from law schools all over the Caribbean, and all of these are eager to come out and find little loopholes that you as Rotarians would probably be just doing. And you felt it was normal before, but if you're having a project where you have young children or little children in a washroom or going to washrooms, and you don't have security at those washrooms, you don't have proper lighting, and anyone comes across like a vagrant and attacks one of these, or they're assaulted, you are going to have to pay for that for the rest of your life if you're not a limited liability club. So again, there are certain issues and projects that you have to have your legal team, or you have your persons who will be able to give you advice on what are some of the risks involved in those projects. Keep the project to the club members and partners in service. The answer, of course, is no, right? I told you have to engage all stakeholders as much as possible. Post your projects on, well, not Facebook. I just told you, and I showed you where you need to go and post your projects. Okay, so let's see, next slide. Good. So this is the greatness of Rotary. It is having the opportunity from getting into your little small bowl and jumping into the big bowl. That's what you are. You are Rotarians, and you have been given the opportunity to actually widen your scope, right? Your projects that you do, right, makes the club, makes you successful as a president in your term, right? And therefore, it is extremely important to ensure that the opportunities that are available to you as Rotarians, you have to try to get the best of them. Okay. Now, we're going to enter into some breakout sessions. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you to make sure you understand this. Okay. So we have a little scenario where a small Rotary club in a small country where there are other clubs, there's a high incidence of diabetes, hypertension, right, leading to strokes and heart disease. Every year, this Rotary Club gives out 4 wheelchairs per person due to amputated limbs due to diabetes mellitus. It's a very common problem we have in many of our communities. Right. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to break out into 6 groups, right? The first 2, group 1 and 2, will deal with the situation and decide on a project with high impact. Now, we are going to actually, for ease, create that project for you because we're not in a physical program. So what we're going to do for the project is we're going to say, you went out and you looked at the community and you saw this high incidence of diabetes and the fact that people were giving out wheelchairs to these people, and you looked at their dietary habits and you looked at all of these things, and you yourself have members who are diabetics, and you said, listen, I am going to try to understand what is happening with the diabetes in the community. So I am going to assist the government who cannot be testing these diabetics. I'm going to use what is called the HbA1c testing. I am going to purchase at least a certain number of HbA1c test kits, and I'm going to get key stakeholders to go out in these communities, and I'm going to check the levels of diabetes, HbA1c results in the community. And if I do that, and I can assess what is the state of the diabetics in the community, I am positive that there will be other programs that we can implement to reduce the incidence of diabetes just by knowing what are the levels of HbA1c. Now, what is HbA1c for those of you all who don't understand it? An HbA1c test actually lets you know what is the state of the sugar in the blood over the last 3 months. Now, this is very important because if the HbA1c is over 6, for example, right, and diabetics, they are sometimes 8 to 10, right, they have a higher risk of amputations because they have poor controls. So if you can go into a community and you can do the testing on diabetics and you get the results and you see that they are ranging anywhere from 5 to 6, that means you don't have much to do. But if you see them ranging from 8 to 10, it means that you have to bring in key stakeholders, right, and assess what is happening. Okay, so the project will be to implement or to deliver, right, HbA1c testing in this community. So group 1 will go into the community, assess the situation, and decide on, we already gave you the project. We want you to get HbA1c test strips and actually go down and do it. But you're going to have to tell us how we came to that, because, I mean, I just told you you need to do it. So you're going to have to go and ask the right questions in the community to find out about their diabetes and how you can actually test them. Because you can't just go and stick somebody with a pin or a needle, right, and do a test. That's assault. So I'm just going to make sure you understand that if you can't just go and test somebody with a blood test, right, in most of our sovereignties, right? So group 1 will do that, and there will be 2 groups. So it'll be group 1 and 2 will be able to do number one. I hope the facilitators understand. If you have any questions, you can ask them so we can explain it. Group two, plan the project and present it to the board. So the group two will discuss how I can plan this project and present it to the board. So you would have to do the same things that we do in a physical room. Find somebody to record, find somebody to talk, right? So that when the person comes back to the main group after your time, right, you will be able to present what the group has done. Group three, implement the project and evaluate it and report it. In other words, then group three then will tell us how you're going to go down there now, right? How you're going to, where are you going to source the kits and how you're going to go down, with who you're going to go down, blah, blah, blah. And then they're going to evaluate it after, which is what I talked about, finding out what is your HbA1c levels, right? And comparing it if you have to with current data in the area, maybe who you want to deal with, whether it's Ministry of Health or any other persons who would have that information, and reporting it back to, I told you where, showcase is closed. So there's a new place that you have to go on and report it. And actually, you can actually create your project there and post it immediately so that the people around the world can see you're doing this HbA1c project amongst the 134 or 140,000 projects that are now on the SRC. Okay? Any questions? Good.
PDG,
All right.
PDG,
Yes.
Stephen.
Sure.
So group 1 and 2.
We'll do the first one, group one. Because
Right. So group
yeah,
2,
2 and 3 will do plan the
second
project
one.
and present, and group 5 and 6 will do implement the
number
project
3.
and evaluate the project. Yes.
Okay, great.
Right? You guys okay? So Tanya, you can, I don't know how you're going to separate it, but
Okay, already done.
Right, great.
Just one note before we go in, we are
Yeah.
placing all of our French French-speaking Rotarians into group number 1. So if you do end up in a group that is not group number 1, please let us know. You should be able to come back into the main room so that we can reassign you appropriately. So group 1 for our French. Thank you.
How long, Tanya? How much?
We will be in the group for approximately 14 minutes.
14 minutes. Okay. Okay.
Okay. All set. Have fun.
Okay.
So the facilitators can go into your respective groups, and I will sort of kind of jump in each one. Any questions, you could come back and ask me. Okay, guys, have fun.
Welcome back,
Yes.
everyone.
Everybody's in?
Yes, it looks so.
Great. Okay, guys. So thank you all. I hope that the breakout rooms, I mean, I'm sure I know you didn't have much time, but it was very not so much about the time, but the engagement. So I just wanted to ask, well, just wanted to get a quick nod with a hands up to all the persons, the facilitators who were in the room, whether the discussions, although it was an online environment, was satisfactory in terms of engagement and aligned discussion. If we could get a sort of hands up, a palm up, right? It was okay, yeah. Most people were discussing what was relevant to the topic, and they were actually almost looking like there was a meeting in a club where people were talking about this project, yeah?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I think we had great discussion in group 2.
Okay, excellent. All right, so quickly, we would have to ask the person who has been assigned in group 1 to say a few words. Now we're running time. It's now about, it's about 8 o'clock, right? Yeah, so we're gonna have a quick response, not long. Group 1. Anybody who has been assigned to speak in group 1?
Oui.
Oui, donc c'était
French,
notre
yeah.
groupe.
Okay.
Donc, en ce qui concerne justement, en fait, bon, la discussion a été à la fois très très intéressante, et puis ça a permis justement en fait à la fois de figer les choses. Donc le point important, c'était vraiment pour évaluer l'intérêt de l'action, c'est il y a des préalables à mettre en place, notamment c'est surtout l'expression des besoins. Donc l'expression des besoins paraît être primordiale que ce soit pour justement satisfaire et puis mettre en place une action qui avec le plus d'impact possible. Donc, il y a eu plusieurs exemples d'actions et qui ont été menées et qui permettaient justement de mettre en place des grilles d'analyse et pour des choix, pour faire les meilleurs choix d'action. Alors que ce soit en termes on a pris l'exemple de reboisement, suite justement en fait à des mauvaises conditions météo au niveau du Nord Caraïbe par exemple de la Martinique et donc qui permettent justement d'avoir une vision à la fois élargie mais surtout avoir impliqué tous les acteurs donc ça part véritablement du terrain et ça remonte, quoi. C'est-à-dire que pour qu'une action soit véritablement efficace, ça demande qu'il y ait une connaissance sujet et que les acteurs se rencontrent pour pouvoir mettre en place une méthodologie pour être le plus efficace possible. Donc, l'expression des besoins est, dans ce cas de figure vraiment primordiale.
Okay. All right. Group 2.
Hi, that would be me. Our assignment was to assess and decide on a project with high impact. We started with first engaging with the community to create more awareness about the situation and the severity of diabetes, because prevention is always better than curing. Talking about partnerships and collaborations with medical staff or pharmacies to provide the materials that we need for the testing, whether it is discounted or sponsored. That goes for the supplies, but also for the resources, because you need medical staff to perform this testing. Engage with corporate businesses for additional support and sponsorship, and of course, make sure that you can apply or reach for a grant to broaden your reach with this awareness project.
Okay. Group 3.
Based on information that would have been gleaned from group 1 and 2, we should have an idea of the number of persons who have to be tested. And in terms of executing, it's making sure that we have a location, confirming whether it is a donated location or paid location. Make sure there's proper collaboration with any sponsors, and collaboration with medical professionals as well, whether transportation is required to make sure that is in place, and to determine whether there's a cost for that transportation, putting measures in place in case persons are not mobile and you need to actually go to their homes to do testing, determining whether that is possible and putting that in place, and also making sure that there's seating, light refreshments like water and things like that, and a tent in case of rain or some kind of covering. And, based on all of those factors, determine where there is a cost for items and having a budget together for that cost.
You. Group 5. Is it group 4? Group 4, sorry.
Group 4, yes, group 4 now.
Okay, so good evening, everybody. So group 4 was to plan the project and make a presentation to the board. So we decided that we will do it in 3 phases, where we will gather all the necessary information, human resources, doctors, nurses, the location, the equipment, any needles that are required, any nursing station, bins, napkins, that sort of thing. How many patients, how many kits we will need to procure, and the costing of the actual venue, and if we have to pay any trained professional and that sort of thing, and also if we can have any partners Well, collaborating with like-minded partners, I should say. And then phase 2 would be actually going out and conducting the assessment, conducting the necessary tests. And then the phase 3 would be actually bringing back the data and then presenting to the board. Thank you.
Team 5.
Good evening, guys. We were tasked with the implementation of the project. Firstly, we looked at finding a central location within the community, maybe a community center, making sure that there is shelter and good accommodation for elderly persons and persons who may have had disabilities and so on. We also looked at collaboration with the Ministry of Health, government agencies, hospitals, and so on. And we would have sent out flyers for notices for persons to become aware that we are around and what we will be doing and so on. We also looked at sensitization. Having tested these persons, we let them know what it means if their blood sugar is high and make recommendations to them as it relates to diet and movement and so on. Anything that we could help them with to make sure that they do better, to help with what they're going through. We also talk about an ad campaign and the amount of persuasion we would need to get people to actually come and do the testing. Some persons might not want to because they really are afraid and don't want to find out about their health and so on. So we would go around and talk to them and try to persuade them to come. We also look at storing the information on a database once it was acquired. So that was it.
Okay, good. And group 6, team 6.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Our group focused on evaluating and reporting on the project. So what we would have discussed would have been before implementing the project to collect the baseline information from the community health center on the incidence of diabetes and number of amputees in the community. And then after implementation of the project, around the 3-month mark, we would do our first checks back, and then subsequently in a year, and further long-term, because diabetes is an extremely long-term issue. So that would be the before, the after. On the reporting side, we would have discussed reporting on the finances, what expenditures would have been incurred to execute the project, as well as the project findings, and then planning, looking ahead. So of course, you would have been working with local doctors, so you would want to run the report by at least one of the doctors to make sure that it is accurate. So yes, as part of the reporting, look at then what could be future project possibilities and future physical and financial needs if there's need for social assistance and things like that.
Yeah. Okay, so I think that this was very, very good. The fact that you all can have a chat within this environment and come up with those responses, I would like to congratulate you guys. I mean, I think we should all give them a round of applause for actually achieving the goals of the workshop. This is an extremely important project in the sense that it's not about the project, it's about the process that you have to go through to do the project. And it has very long-term consequence. So it's a good tool, right? It's a good workshop tool to use this project, because what this project tells you it actually encompasses the Rotary RI strategic plan, where we're asking clubs to create more high impact programs, more sustainable and easily adaptable programs. And this is very important because what happens is that the HbA1c testing has been shown, if you can implement within communities the necessary steps to mitigate this rise in sugar, it actually saves more lives. It saves much more amputations. But what is important about it is that you have to now compare your data that you got from this project, and every 3 months you need to repeat the HbA1c to see how that control is going to go along, and then start by saying, I was doing 20 amputations this month, and at the end of the year, I have reduced that number from 20 a month to 5 a month. So this is what I talked about, saying that at the end of the year, your club would now say, well, look, I am not just giving hampers. I am actually have implemented a project that actually is reducing the number of amputations per month. Because the second group, sorry, the third and fourth group would have gotten the data from the relevant authorities to say, well, look, I have 10,000 diabetics and I'm having 25 amputations per month. In a year's time, right, it'll be interesting now to get that information as to how many people are in the clinic and how many amputations per month, knowing that every 3 months you're checking the HbA1c. Now, it's not, remember, what I'm talking about is not about the actual project, but what your club has to do. So if you adapt other projects, such as flooding, such as, cyberbullying, such as bringing water to communities, such as, information about cardiac disease, any one of the projects that the district is looking at, right? Autism, all of these projects, right? If you run it in a similar manner, using the same way when we did the groups, right? You will find that you will be able to create opportunities. You'll be able to create projects that you can come a year after and say, hey, I have actually done this. See? So I'm in a club and we have been giving wheelchairs for years. Every month somebody asks for a wheelchair. But what has that done? Because every month we still have to give the same number of wheelchairs. And there are many clubs that are doing that. But have we done something to reduce the number of persons who we actually give wheelchairs to? And that is the difference. This is what we are trying to tell you about your projects. And this is when you divided up this group into 3. It's not just about the HbA1c. Why we use this, and you can go back into your club and use the HbA1c as an example, similar to this workshop, because that's what you're going to have to do. You are the club leader. You are not the service projects chairman. You're not the service projects team. You are the one that are going to have to create that team. So this lesson today was all about how you go about choosing the people, how you go about telling them about using the tools that Rotary has given, the community assessment, how you actually have the workshops or the club assemblies. And not just the club assemblies doesn't have to be your own club members. You have to bring ministries, doctors who are in the Ministry of Health, get the statisticians from your Ministry of Legal Affairs, whoever is keeping the information about the data, diabetics, etc. Right? As you said, go to the pharmacies and find out how much it'll cost me to get a HbA1c test kit, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so this is what we have done. So in order to finish now, we are going to wrap up. Thank you very much. Congratulations on a successful workshop. I think you all did very well in the environment. I know it's difficult. Thanks to the facilitators who would have made sure that there was a discussion. And as a club leader, are you ready for 2025-26? Go back, look at your club goals, right? What are the club goals at the service committee, which is under my sort of purview in terms of what I'm doing here today, right? All the committees. It doesn't just have to be the service committee, but this is what we're talking about tonight. How would you determine which projects have greater impact? As I said, yes, I told you about different types of projects, and I told you there are the simple ones. You have a barbecue, you give a wheelchair. Don't even stop that. That has to happen. But now I'm talking about this type of project, something that you can go 3 years or 5 years down the line and say, look, you know what? My Rotary Club, myself as a club leader, I have made a difference. I have made a difference. And I have made a statistical difference. And that equates and that translates to a quality type of service, which you have offered your communities. You have actually go and say, look, I spent 25,000 US dollars on this project. But you know what I have done? I have made life happier for 10 people this year by preventing them from having a wheelchair, by damaging their homes, by the fact that I'm on a wheelchair, I can't even provide livelihood for my people. And when you add that cost, 25,000 US is worth more than $100,000 to $200,000 US in what we call cost benefits to that person and his family and his relatives and his friends. So that is the type of thing where you're going to come back now and say, hey, you know what? This is what I have done. I have actually done something for 25,000, but the cost of that project is far less than what I have done in terms of the cost to those communities and those persons. Okay. And that's how you report the project. And that's how you sell that. Okay. How will you work with other communities in your club or district to develop your project? Again, engagement, I told you. Our lives as human beings is all about networking, about meeting other human beings and trying to have all the competencies and skills come together. All you have to do as club leaders is to nurture it, cultivate it, empower it, look at it, and there's a word I always keep using, facilitate it. All right? Don't try to push your ideas on people. Try to let them develop the ideas that you want them to do, but in a skilled way where you don't have to talk down at them. Don't talk at them. And that even goes to your club members. Talk with them. Okay? And all right, we just talked about that. And thank you. I hope it was good for you guys as it was for me. If there are any questions, well, Sonia, you could lead that charge.
Right. Thank you. Thank you so much, PDG Stephen. We are going to be having a follow-up session to this in Trinidad, and that's when we will be facilitating the questions. If you do have any that come up that you'd like to put in the chat now, please make a note of it for us, or you can email any of us on the learning team, and we'll make sure to get feedback from PDG Stephen. We now hand over again to DG Soraya to say thank yous and wrap up for our final session.
Thank you. Thank you, Tanya. And thank you, Past District Governor Stephen, for your informative, insightful, and engaging presentation on service projects. We really appreciate you being here with us this evening. As you indicated, and based on the feedback, I should say that we really want to congratulate the teams, right, for responding in such a short space of time and coming up with such comprehensive outcomes and results. And based on the feedback from the teams, it is clear that the approach required is understood by understanding community needs, which is the first step, setting clear objectives, engaging stakeholders, planning for sustainability. If you pay attention to all of these, our clubs can ensure the introduction of projects that are both effective and impactful. And once these strategies are employed, it can help in making that meaningful difference in the community that we are striving for. Additionally, if our projects are appropriately assessed and structured, as you've indicated, then we open ourselves up to securing grant funding, both within and outside of Rotary. I am eagerly looking forward to the second session on service projects, which will take place in a couple of days in Trinidad, where a lot of what has been discussed here this evening will be further cemented. And I'm hoping that our club leadership is as eager as I am to get involved and have further discussions on service projects. This is such an important area for us as Rotarians, and Rotary has endeavored to ensure that we have the resources that we need to reinforce our service activities and increase our impact. So you are encouraged to visit my Rotary and ensure that you access all of the information available to you. And as suggested here this evening by PDG Stephen. So thank you again, club leaders, for being a part of this session this evening. Thank you to our interpreters for their support throughout this process, and as well to our district learning team led by incoming DLFE Tanya. We now look ahead to our in-person PELS, which promises great interaction, loads of fun, and some learning in between. So you will be missing out for sure if you're not yet on the list of registrants. I would like to close off this evening, which is, as we indicated before, our final session in our virtual series, with the words of President-elect Mario. Let us work toward becoming the best qualified group of volunteers on the planet. Let us unite for good. See you all soon. We're signing off now. Thank you so much for your attention this evening. Good night, everyone.